So last week we went through part 1 of So Now What? Part 2 is going to be installing Klipper. So this week is installing Klipper. The next one is going to be function testing and then some tuning. So the first thing we need to do is get everything set up. I don't want you to try doing this with the board in the printer. Some of these boards actually have the heaters set at 100% by default. So before you plug anything into the board for the printer, put it on your bench, power it up, and get the firmware flashed so that we can make sure when we do plug it in, we aren't starting any fires. So down below here you can see I have my board, a Raspberry Pi, and a power supply. You want to make sure that you keep your terminals covered on that power supply so that you're not hurting yourself. So get everything plugged in, powered on, board's on, Raspberry Pi's plugged in, and depending on your board, USB cable right into the board. I'm using an Octopus because that's what I happen to have on hand in the box. So the first thing we're going to need to do is log into the Raspberry Pi with PuTTY. Last week we set the host name to make life a little bit easier during this step, and I just named mine Klipper for simplicity's sake. So in PuTTY, we're just going to type in the host name. We want to SSH and click open. Now once we get to display capture. Oh, not display capture. All right. So you're greeted with this login as. This is going to be the username and password that you also set during last week's presentation. So I just use my name and a password that I'm not going to tell you because it's super secret. And you're greeted with the login screen, or with the host name here with the username in front of it. So first thing we need to do is install the Klipper install and update helper. I'm not going to try and pronounce that acronym because I can't. Get that out of the way. So I'm going to be providing these PowerPoint slides for everybody so that you can go in and copy and paste everything. I guess I can't copy and paste from the PowerPoint while it's running, so we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. So this command right here, the apt-get update and install with the Y after it, that has been giving people some issues lately. I think GitHub changed the way they do things. They had some security issues lately. But we're going to do it now so I can show you errors that people get often. Unfortunately, some of these things take a while. All right, so see here it failed. So in that case, what we're just going to do is separate out the two commands, the apt-get update and apt-get install git front end. All right, so when you get this error, unable to acquire the package front end because we are not root, that means I did not type sudo before the command. This needs to be run as root. And we're going to type yes. All right, so once we're back at that green, we are ready to go to the next one. So we want to go to the home directory. And then we are going to clone that GitHub repository. Into the home directory. And now that we have it, we can start it. And we're greeted with this page. So from here, we can start installing our features. So number one is going to install Klipper. So we just type 1 and hit enter. Oh, I'm sorry, I was back one. We need to go to install first. Now we can install Klipper. This is giving you a list of everything. Now, which version do you like? The recommended one is always a good bet. Number of Klipper instances, we're only going to be doing one printer for now, so we'll just type 1. Do you want to assign a custom name? No. Oh, 11. Oh, no. Go back. Install Klipper. One instance. So this unfortunately does take quite a while. So it's just going to do its thing. And it is a little bit based on your internet, as it's downloading quite a bit right now. So the next step is going to be to add users and groups. If you don't add your login to the right group, then you're not going to be logging. You're going to be able to log into Klipper, and obviously that's going to be an issue for you. So when we get there, we want to add your main user that we set up in the Raspberry Pi to this user group. Man, I should have had wait music playing in the background while we were talking about this, because it does take a while. Well, let's move on while it's working. So we add the user to the group, and then it's going to bring us back to the main screen where we can then install Moonraker, which is the second part. So we just type it 2, and it goes through the install. And then we're going to install the user interface that we decide to use. Mainsail and Fluid are the two most common, and the two options here in the install helper. I've been a Fluid user for a while, so I'm probably just going to stick with that, and we'll do that one tonight. You can actually use both, and it'll assign a port to each one, and it'll give you the link. Once we get those installed, we can go back. Those are the two required items, 3 required items that you're going to need. So this is the part that gets a lot of people when we're actually building the firmware image. You have to run the install make. You're going to make a clean, do the menu config, and it brings you to this screen here. You need to enable the extra low level configuration option there, and it's going to give you more options. These options are each set based on your control board. I'll go through what to do for the Octopus because that's the board I have on hand, but you need to look up your manufacturer's specifications for these. The processor model is an easier one to find. It'll be on the board. So you can see writing on that big chip. That's the processor. We can't read it because I'm using a GoPro as my webcam, but it'll say on there STM32F446, and that's how we find that. Still going. All right, so we quit. We say yes, we want to save it, and then we run a make. And that actually builds the firmware, and it drops the firmware file called klipper.bin into this folder here. Depending on how you're going to write the firmware to the board, you may need to get that file and convert it to a different format. We're going to put this board into DFU mode and just flash it through USB. So you want to go back to the main directory using CD Klipper, and then get a list of USB devices. LSUSB is the command to get the list of devices that are plugged in. And you do want your board in DFU mode to do this. On this board, it's an extra jumper. On other boards, it might be different ways to get it there, but it should be in the user manual for that board. So when we run that command, LSUSB, it's going to show up as in DFU mode. And that's the one that you want. And you're going to need this ID number. If it doesn't show up, just restart the board, and then it should come up. So again, that's an important number. Write it down. So we're then going to make the flash device, and this ID is going to be the number from before. So for me, last time it was this number, and you just put that in the end. So it'll be make flash device, your number. Once it's done flashing, reboot the board into normal operating mode. So if it's an Octopus, take out that jumper, hit the reset button, and then you're going to run ls dev serial by ID. If it was successful, it's going to show up as a Klipper device specifically. And again, this is a number you need to keep. This is actually going to go into your printer.cfg file. So right here it says Klipper, and over here is your number. So in your printer CFG, in the MCU section is where you're going to put that. The dev serial by ID, and then that big long string. And once you get that in there and give it a firmware reboot, you should still have some errors because you don't have your heaters or anything hooked up. So your thermistors are going to be out of range and it won't let you do anything. And that is the end. So we'll go back to where we left off. And unfortunately this is still running. I told you it takes a while. Oh man, we're going over the 20 minutes. Nightcore, how much trouble am I going to be in for going over? Not at all? Alright. 100 push-ups? Man, I haven't done 100 push-ups since I got out of the Army. At least not all at the same time. So, do you guys have any questions yet? Or is it just gotta see it? $100 fine, alright. I'll get right on that. Just don't be surprised when it's Monopoly money that shows up. Alright. So, now you get that your user's not in groups. We're going to say, yes, please add it to the correct group. And it brings us back to the install page. So now we need to install Moonraker, which is what your printer uses to connect to the interface. So while we're waiting here, so this is a jumper. We need to install this on the boot 0 jumper on this board, which is right above the BitQ logo. And that just connects 2 little metal pins. And then we're going to hit the reset button. And that should put it in DFU mode. So a little bit about the other options that are in here. So Klipper screen will allow you to use a lot of different screen options for your printer. It's a really nice interface. I don't use screens on my printers very much, so I've never used it, but it is far better than a standard SPI interface screen on these. I'm sure everyone's familiar with Octoprint. It's not necessary in Klipper. If you really like it, you can have it, but it's a hungry beast, and I don't see a need for it. The Telegram bot will actually send you some notifications if you set it up right. So when the printer gets the temperature, when it completes the print, that kind of thing. Obico for Klipper is one of my favorite features. You can actually have it send notifications to Discord. So I have it set up when my printer gets the temperature. It's the original, the guy that originally came out with the spaghetti detection, and it works far better than most of the other options I've used. Octo Everywhere is, I'm not a fan, but it'll let you use your Octo print from outside your local network. I don't like that because it's a security thing for me, but if that's your thing, have at it. Mobile Raker is actually an Android app. I'm not sure if they have it for iPhone, that will let you use your printer from your phone without going through the web interface. It's not super powerful, but it is handy for doing little things. And Crow's Nest is for cameras. It's a more powerful interface than what comes baked into Klipper, and it's definitely nice to have. It is also an iOS app. Thank you, Adam. I haven't used an iPhone in a very long time, so I'm not up to date on what they have these days. So this warning retrying, I believe this is related to my slow network, but I've seen a couple people complaining of it in the last week or so. It's going to automatically retry to grab what it failed. And it got it the second time. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, we can install, I'll do fluid. So that is option 4. Hit enter. Yeah, we'll download the macros. And we're back here. So now that we got those 3 installed, we're going to Q for quit. Oh, B for back, Q for quit. And we're back to the regular prompt here. So from there we'll run sudo apt install make. Go to the home directory for Klipper. Make clean. That's going to delete anything that you have already. Make menu config. And we're here. So we enable the low-level configuration. And then for my board, STM32. Processor model is F446. And we're just hitting spacebar to select. It's 32-bit. And it is a 12 megahertz crystal. And USB. So we're going to hit Q to exit, yes to save, and then we're going to run make. And this is actually compiling the firmware. And now that that's done, we're already in the right folder, so I'm not going to run that. We'll do ls USB, and here you can see the device in DFU mode that we just did. So we're going to need 083. Oh. DF11. So that is the same ID I got for the last run. So then we're going to make flash, and then case does matter here. So capital flash underscore device equals 0483 colon lowercase df11. So this is now erasing what's currently on the board and writing the new firmware to it. And then to see if it worked, we're going to pull out that jumper, restart the board, and ls dev serial by ID. And look at that, it says Klipper, so it should be working now. So if we open up Firefox or Chrome or your browser of choice, you can go to that same address that we put into PuTTY, so klipper.local. Alright, so here it says MCU unable to connect. We're going to go down into the system. So configuration files, printer.cfg. So here under the MCU section, we're going to take out this part. We're going to add in that ID that we just got. Save and restart. And now we're connected. Now that printer.cfg doesn't have any heater set up, so we did not get that error. I was using an old configuration off of one of my other printers. So that's all there is to it. It's not a crazy complicated process, but you do need to know those commands. So I'm going to upload this video to YouTube once we get done here, and I'll see you guys over in the Hangout.